And I think that is India's contribution. I think, and that contribution, must be understood in context. I mean, when Nehru became India's first prime minister, he effectively gave up the ambition of, becoming a great power. He says India's real contribution is a moral one. Right? We'll never be able to compete economically or militarily with the great powers. But so he adopted non-alignment. He fought for peace. He fought for north-south equality in economic development. He argued for a new international economic order and so on. And that's the agenda that I would like India to pursue. Of course, it will be a big country, a big power with an economic powerhouse, presumably. But I would like India not to be a superpower at all.
If you assume that by 2025, China, Russia, Brazil, European Union and USA will be the major powers in the world, then what kind of relationship or rifts or alliances do you see between them and India?
Again, that's an open question in the sense it depends on who is leading India and what kind of parties and policies are in command. If the present orientation, which is very, very strongly pro-United States, persists, then of course the alliances will be with countries like the United States and Japan, and already we are getting into that. You're getting this quadrilateral relationship where Japan, United States, Australia and India have set up a forum. They're consulting one another mutually. They held a series of meetings. Their foreign ministers are planning to meet in the autumn, and so on. And I see this grouping actually as a very, very negative development. It's going to destabilize the balance in Asia, in the Asia Pacific. The Chinese feel, rightly I think, that it's meant to corner them and contain them, and the Chinese would react by taking measures which are going to inflame, which are going to start an arms race, which are going to inflame the security situation. It's not healthy. And I think the United States is trying to recruit India into a relationship of close alliance, but of course a subordinate alliance, and draw India into its security architecture, the United States dominated security architecture for Asia, an anchor. As an anchor, India would be on a par with Israel and Japan, and that's not the kind of relationship that is in our favor. But that is for now. It's possible that this tendency will change, that you'll have course correction under a different regime, different government, which is more independent in its thinking about the world and global affairs.
If you take United States as a unipolar world today, which we are living in a unipolar world, do you see do you see a multipolar world coming up? And if a multipolar world is coming up, where do you see the centers of power? What alliances like? Will there be an alliance between India, China and Russia? Or will there be an alliance between India, Russia and European Union?
Well, I think I don't believe that the United States' present dominance as the sole superpower can continue indefinitely. In fact, that was the project of the neocons and the project for a new American century and all that, and they have failed. I mean, they made such a mess of Iraq and of Afghanistan. I mean, it's tragic in some ways, and it's at a tremendous human cost. You're talking about, 750,000 people, civilians having died in Iraq, according to the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. But I think this is not working, and I think sooner or later you're going to have challenges to American hegemony from different sources. The European Union at the moment is in a mess internally. It doesn't have a real alternative perspective and vision for the world, which is different from that of the United States either. It's also within the neoliberal policy trap as far as economics is concerned, but it could sort itself out. I see Russia, South Africa, and certainly a very interesting Latin American bloc that, say Brazil, Mexico, Venezuela, Cuba and so on, getting together and providing alternative poles of attraction with different agendas which are more relevant to the bulk of the population
Right.
in the third world than what the West has to offer, which is so limited.
Right. What issues will define the relationship among these powers? Will it be water, technology, energy, population, markets?
I think it will be a combination of issues, but some of the most important issues get concentrated in one major issue which the world can no longer fudge, and that is that of north-south inequalities, the great polarity, and the concerns of the vast majority of peoples in the 80% of the world's countries which are underdeveloped, which are developing. And I think those concerns have to be addressed, and they cannot be addressed by the existing arrangements that the world has through the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, or the World Trade Organization. I mean, we've seen that free trade hasn't helped. Freer trade has destroyed livelihoods in many third world countries. And we need different solutions. We need fair trade, not free trade. So we need solutions that are based on equity and justice. And those are the kinds of solutions. I think the real success of the new alliances will really depend on which countries and which governments are able to focus on some of these issues and offer alternative perspectives. And it's around those issues that some of these new groupings will coalesce.
But which one of these will be the highlight of the problem? Water, energy, or oil, or market? Which one you think?
Well, oil and energy are related and so on. Okay. Well, I mean, I think the economic issues are going to be very, and energy, of course, will be very important.
Of course. Okay.
And water, of course. I mean, I think the world has to. I mean, let's face it. Unless we conserve water, unless we roll back the whole process of global warming, we are headed for disaster.
Yeah.
And water is very much part, and the energy is very much part of that whole agenda.
Okay. What will India's major strength be in the global village?
I think India's real strength is its plurality, its diversity, its success so far in more or less managing to keep such diverse communities of people together, different religions, different castes, different ethnic. This is a marvelously diverse society. There's nothing remotely comparable to India, right? And if we can make a model of successfully working our democracy while preserving difference and plurality within India, I think we can actually be a model for many countries.
Despite the fact that India has a growing dynamic middle class of, let's say, 300 million, there are equal number of people who are an underclass. Where do you see them in 2025?
Well, I question that number about the size of the Indian middle class. I've made calculations, I've written extensively on it. If you really talk of the middle class in terms of consumption, let's say the same level as Southeast Asia, then the Indian middle class is probably of the order of 60 million.
Is that
80 million? Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Not 300
no.
Okay.
You know, the number of people who own cars in this country is just 7% of the population, right? Okay, now you allow for two-wheelers as well. I mean, you wouldn't consider two-wheeler owners, scooter and motorcycle owners in Southeast Asia to be middle class.
Okay.
But never, even if you have a rather expansive and liberal definition, you wouldn't have more than 80 or so million people. So it's a small number. The number of poor people is far, far higher than the official estimates show. In fact, there is a recent analysis by the National Council of Applied Economic Research which says that 70% of Indians earn and spend less than 20 rupees a day. The dollar is 40 rupees, right? So you're talking half a dollar. So the number of poor people is probably of the order of 600, 700 million. So there is no comparison. It's all, that number is probably 10 times, 9 times higher than the number
really?
of, yes.
Okay. I guess if the consumer industry, international consumer industry came to know about the fact that India's middle class is only 7%, we won't see any more India Miss World and India Miss Universe.
That's right. They won't rig those. But nevertheless, this is a large market. Don't forget, 80 million is larger than any country of Western Europe, barring Germany, which is 83 million. So, you know, it's a huge market even for that middle class.